So today we're going to focus on finding products of radical expressions. And we'll start with this one right here. And this is a pretty straightforward concept. You'll still see some of the things that carried over from Monday and Tuesday where we had to simplify irrational roots. But there's really just one more step to this. And again, once I show you how to do this, it's really pretty straightforward. So in order to multiply two radical expressions like we have here, for example, 3 root 2 times 4 root 18. Well, the simplest way to explain this is we simply multiply the coefficients, 3 and 4, and then we multiply root 2 and root 18. I'll explain how to do that in just a second. To start though, 3 times 4, that's really easy, right? Well, that's just going to give you 12. And then we have root 2 times root 18. Now this part's really easy. There's no need to go simplifying this radical expression. I know we could factor out something here, but we're just going to leave it as is for the time being. Whenever you multiply two radicals, and this is really the lesson for today, whenever you multiply two radicals, you combine what's in the radical. So 2 times 18 is just going to become root 36. So again, all we've done here is I take the coefficients, 3 and 4, and we multiply those. So whatever's outside the radical, we multiply that, 3 times 4. And then we multiply what's inside the radical. 2 times 18 gets us to 36. From here, we see if we can simplify the radical, which in this one we can. We have 12 out front. Root 36 simplifies to 6. So this just becomes 12 root 36, just becomes 12 times 6, which is 72. So there's our first answer. Now, here's another one similar to that. We have 4 root 6 times the square root of 3. So again, multiplying the coefficients here, this just has a positive 1 technically. So 4 times 1 gets us 4. 4 is just coming along for the ride. Root 6 times root 3, we combine what's in the radical. That gives us root 18. And now from here, though, we have to simplify this a little bit. Now remember, 18 does factor into a perfect square. We do have 4 times the square root of 9 times 2. That's how we can rewrite that. And we know that the square root of 9 is 3, so we're going to take that outside the radical. Square root of 9 is 3, and multiply the 3 by the 4 that's already there. So once we take the 9 outside the radical and multiply it by the 4, that's going to give us 12 root 2. And that's our simplified answer. Now, something interesting that happens when we multiply radicals, and it's good that I explain this because it does come in handy sometimes. Whenever you square a radical expression, for example, root 7 times root 7, whenever we square a radical expression, we just get exactly what's inside the radical, 7. So we know that root 7 is an irrational number, and root 7 is, so there's two irrational numbers here, but when I multiply them, it just comes out to a nice round 7. And why is that, you might ask? Well, if you think about it, root 7 times root 7, if we just incorporate what we did a minute ago, where we combine what's inside the radicals, like we combine the 2 and the 18 to give us root 36, well, if I apply that rule here, root 7 times root 7, well, that's equal to root 49, isn't it? I just combine the 7s inside the radical, and we know that 49 is a perfect square. The square root of 49 is 7. So let's look at a couple of these. Root 16 squared, for example. Another way to write that is square root of 16 times the square root of 16. Now, yes, we could combine what's in the radical. You could do 16 times 16 and then square root it, but that's really adding work here. Since these are identical, we're squaring this. We just take what's inside the radical, and that's our answer. We remove the radical and just write 16. That's it. Now, for this one here, 4 root 2 squared, a little more involved here, and this really helps us it helps if you write it out. So if I have 4 root 2 times 4 root 2, and now we just combine what we've done today. Okay, multiply your coefficients. 4 times 4 gets us 16. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. And that gets us to 32. So we're shortcutting it a little bit here. Root 2 times, rather than combining this and then simplifying the square root, all I'm doing is, okay, well, I'm squaring this radical. Root 2 times root 2 is just 2, and that makes this a little bit shorter, a little bit easier to solve. One more like that. 6 root 3 squared. Okay, so it's 6 root 3 times itself. Another 6 root 3. Combine your coefficients. 6 times 6 gets us 36. And remember, again, I could combine what's in the radical. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I could combine 3 times 3 and rewrite that as the square root of 9, which we know is 3. But as you can see, there's a shortcut, right? Since I'm squaring this radical, root 3 times root 3, we just write 3. So our answer is just going to be 108. 36 times 3 gets us to 108. Okay, so when we meet today, we'll do a bunch of these like this. We'll be squaring radicals, multiplying radicals, and we'll also incorporate some variables as well. There you go for now.